Good evening and welcome to a very special WDSU Hot Seat. We are here in Mid-City with the new district attorney in Orleans Parish, Jason Williams. His first sit-down one-on-one interview. First off, personally, congratulations on winning the office.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
So let's get right to it. A lot of changes on the horizon. You campaigned as the candidate of change. Let's talk about staff. What changes do you plan on making? 120 attorneys, dozens of more investigators, clerical workers. What changes will you or have you made at this point?
So I think you heard yesterday there's absolutely some top leadership positions that have changed to help us bring the reform measures that the public has been crying out for. There's also going to be some mid-level management structural changes as well. So it's not going to be position for position that existed before, because we've actually endeavored to reorganize the structure of the office for maximum efficiency and to make sure that people are carrying the load equally. And we're also sort of redistributing what people are making, so that the goal is to pay line prosecutors more than they've made in the past.
Because it's not a lot right now.
They don't get paid a lot.
Comes out of law school.
They don't get paid a lot, and I think it was like $30,000, close to $30,000 was the pay back when I first started practicing for a line prosecutor. It has not kept up with the cost of living, so I want to make sure we can absolutely give those folks a bump, because they deserve it. They're working really hard for the people of the city, and also to make sure that they have more support, administrative and trial assistance, so that they can focus on being lawyers. I think people are going to be surprised. There's going to be a number of people that were in the last administration that are going to continue to work for this administration because they were called to serve. But there's going to be some people that are not with us.
So bottom line, and we can all talk about history here. About 20 years ago, Eddie Jordan, when he took over this office, kind of whitewashed everybody. That's not your intention, I take it.
Look, we committed to, and I have been engaging in. It's meant some very early mornings and some very late nights for myself and for existing staff. We've been interviewing all existing lawyers. The goal is to interview all existing staff, and then get into. We have a host of new applicants, folks who want to come and work for the office. But there's going to be no wholesale firing of anyone. It's an individualized process where I get to see how these folks think, and they also get to see how I think and what I'm expecting of the office, so they can make a decision about whether or not they want to work for me and work for this administration.
Let's talk about juvenile crime. You were involved with it when you were on the city council. You actually hired a data guy to try to break down the numbers, and the numbers were not good. It showed that juvenile crime was, I hate to use the term out of control, but out of control in 19 and 20. You made the decision recently to essentially keep juveniles in the juvenile section, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. Some of those may be gun crimes or carjackings. Why is that important, in your opinion? Why has transferring those cases to adult court, in your opinion, not been the answer?
I watched your show last night. I watch your show every night, as you know, Travers. And I saw the report talking about juvenile crime. And the misconception for the public, and I saw that when I heard, I forgot the gentleman's name from Lakeview who you interviewed, and he described it as if it was all or nothing, meaning if a juvenile was not housed in an adult jail and not tried in an adult prison, then they weren't held accountable. That is the big myth. That is a misconception, because we're not letting kids out of jail. We're keeping them in an appropriate facility. We're not prosecuting kids. We're prosecuting them in the appropriate facility as laid out by the United States Supreme Court. So when you talk about a young person being held accountable in a juvenile setting, there are more robust programs and intervention services that will be laid to bear during their incarceration or during their system involvement. Whereas if a kid gets prosecuted in the adult section of court and is held in adult jail, they're just warehoused and then released after their time has been served. By putting them in juvenile court and housing them in an appropriate juvenile facility, there's going to be drug treatment. There's going to be anger management. I'm trying to put in place testing for dyslexia and lead poisoning to figure out what the root causes are that are causing these poor choices, which means that when a person comes out of the appropriate setting, they will have fixed we will have fixed what the root causes were so they do not reoffend. And when you look at best practices around the country, people are getting better results from system-involved youths when there are more wraparound services for all of the days and weeks that they are going through the system, not just dumping them in an adult jail for a few years where they're just going to come back out and having learned new crimes and new bad ideas.
But what can and what will you do? When you were on the council, we did a story with you probably 12 months ago about there aren't a lot of programs at juvenile court, and the ones they have really aren't working. What can you do? Because I think what you just said, people are going to agree with. But what can you do to make sure they're not just warehoused at that juvenile facility on Bayou St. John, that the programs you mentioned, which no one's going to disagree with, should be in place, actually get implemented?
So the first meeting I had with a group of judges was with the juvenile court judges, because I think that has to be a huge area of focus for my office based on what's going on in the city. And the judges are working on a robust continuum of services that they can put in place in the existing infrastructure. I'm bringing on the director of partnerships and fundraising that will be focused on looking at all the intervention services that exist in New York and California and Jefferson Parish and East Baton Rouge, and bringing those types of services into our package and cadre of things that are available in juvenile court, and going out to find new money, not going to the mayor and the council and taxpayers to fund all this, but going after new money so that we can raise funds to deliver these services. So it's a brand new day in terms of what we're going to be delivering on. We're going to build that package out very, very quickly, and we're going to get those services to kids. And I guarantee you, a young person that has to deal with experts, doctors, and social workers every single week that they go through this system, whether they're housed in a juvenile jail or whether or not they're in their home, or whether they're on some sort of electronic monitor with geo-fencing that will alert us if they go beyond school and home, and then we will have an intervention services go out and meet with them. That package of services is going to stop kids from reoffending, and it's going to get to the root causes of what's driving those bad decisions.
Partnerships and new money are obviously fresh ideas, which I think people, are going to be interested to see how those things play out. Let me ask you about a niche topic here. A guy named Dan Bright, a couple of days ago, was charged with attempted murder. It was reduced to simple battery. He walked out of prison. At one time, you were his attorney. Emily Maul with the Innocence Project was his attorney, and a man on your transition team represented him recently. Is that a case that could pose a potential conflict? I know you're obviously a couple of days in, but should there have been a recusal and let somebody else handle that, given the fact that a lot of people were involved with this man's case?
It's really tough to sort of describe these things at a press conference or in sort of fast, but I'm glad we get to have a slow conversation about it. And the truth of the matter is, when you say we represented him, yes, I represented Dan Bright along with a host of other attorneys pro bono over 10 years ago, right? Or I think it was 2012.
It was 9 years
2012.
ago, right. About 10 years ago.
2012
right,
was a
right,
year,
right.
right? And so that is a different case than the case you're talking about now. The way the law and the rules are set up, there's no conflict of interest in terms of if a DA or an ADA represented someone on a separate case years ago. The issue could be if there's a conflict, if I represented him on this current case, right, which I did not. There is the possibility of my office being recused, but that recusal decision inures to the defendant, Dan Bright, in this particular situation. From what I understand, there was negotiations that were already ongoing. This was absolutely the right decision that should be made. There was an affidavit from the victim in the case saying, I know who Dan Bright is, and Dan Bright is not the person that committed this crime. Those are real facts. That is evidence. My oath of office requires that I follow and listen to the evidence and do the right thing. So there was no conflict of interest based upon current laws and current rules.
All right. Final question here. What would you like the optics of the office to be? Obviously, you're taking it in a different direction from Leon Cannizzaro. There's the federal matter that you're dealing with. As we wrap this up, what do you want people to know? What do you want them to know now that you're sitting here behind this desk right here behind us? What do you want them to know out there with everything that's going on, not just with you, but with crime in the city of New Orleans?
So what people need to understand is that exactly what we talked about during the campaign is what we're going to put in place now. Those weren't platitudes. And the thing that people heard me say most was that we were going to prioritize the crimes that matter most to the people in the city. I walked this whole city. I talked to everybody in this community. And people were worried about what is going to happen with our young people, and people were worried about violence in the street. And when you talk about violent crimes that can be avoided, you have to talk about domestic violence. A huge part of what I talked about at my speech on Monday was that crime is rampant in the streets because we've never fully addressed crime in our homes. And in less than 3 days after that talk, 2 people were dead, right? Because of decisions of their domestic partner. So we are going to get engaged in the things that we can fix and prevent. And with regards to juvenile crime, with regards to domestic violence, those are areas that we can clearly see the root causes of, and we can squarely get in front of. And my office is going to focus on these things, not just talk about, hey, this is important to us, but put new systems in place to bring public safety and increase safety for survivors and victims. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to have specialized units for murder, for sexual assault, for human trafficking, and for domestic violence. And that is going to get better outcomes in terms of taking the most dangerous people off the street. And so people are going to be able to go along with us. It's not the last time I'm going to do a long sit down with you, I hope. I'm going to keep the public involved, whether it's by press conferences, whether it's by sharing things on social media, whether it's by sharing data. The same transparency we always had, we're going to have even more of now, because I want the public to see that every reform measure is tied to a public safety benefit.
All right. I would shake your hand, but under COVID protocols, we're probably good.
Namaste.
Right. Not district attorney-elect anymore. He is the district attorney for Orleans Parish, Jason Williams. I'm Travers Mackel. That's all the time that we have for the hot seat. Let's send it back to you.